Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be checking out the King Kong ET100, also known as the LDARC ET100. Yes, that is right. King Kong are changing their name to LDARC due to a court injunction from the makers of the movie franchise King Kong. I can't say that with a straight face. That is completely untrue. I have no idea why they're changing the name, but there you go. This is a brushless micro, and it seems to be an adaptation of their GT series, very similar specs, except I think this one is geared to be an indoor flyer and also an outdoor flyer. Now, I get asked this all of the time, what is the best model for flying indoors and outdoors? And my answer is usually there isn't one. We've got models that are great indoors and models that are great outdoors, but the fact is, if you want a model that does both, there's definitely a compromise. I'm not saying that this won't fly indoors and outdoors, it will. It's just that these prop protectors here, they do things to the flight controller that it's not used to, and you tend to find that you can't get a decent acro tune. But I'm gonna see what this one's like. Anyways, so it comes in the usual King Kong lunch tub, although this one's more of a briefcase. It's quite a big lunchbox. Yeah, and this is a series of models. So this is the ET100, and it says on the box here, now it says that it's plug and play, but this is the DSM-2 version. It looks like we've got an RX-800 here, a Fly Sky RX-2A, an XM version, FM-800, and no RX version. So yeah, and this is the manual here, and it does detail all of the other models. I've got one of the other models. So we've got the 100 version, the 115, and the 125. I've got these two here, so the small one and the large one. What are the differences? Well, the motors and the prop sizes, really. So yeah, this one with a 100 size frame, it takes a 1.9 inch prop, so 1935, which is the same prop on the 90 GT. I'm not a big fan of these props. In fact, when I was looking at this, I was thinking that's the first thing I'd switch out. I'd probably move to the 5-blade propellers, something like that, because they don't have great thrust, these ones. And then the next one along, it has got 2, 3, 4, 5 propellers, so a little bit bigger, a little bit more thrust. However, might be a little bit too big for indoors, so that's why I've gone for this one and the bigger one, because the bigger one definitely too big for indoors, I would say. It's running a 2.8 inch propeller. And yeah, the motors are all slightly different. Actually, these two are the same. So 1104 7500 kV, 1104 7500 kV, and yeah, so this one is 1103 7800 kV there. So yeah, these two very similar, so I'm not sure I'll be checking this middle one out. If enough of you request it, I might do. But anyways, let's take a look at the ET100. So weight-wise, it's the lightest one. It weighs 74 grams. Actually says 71 grams there, but this has got the DSM-2 receiver on it. Yeah, so 74 grams and 102 grams with the included battery. So it's actually a pretty good battery. It's a 450 milliamp 2S. It says 80C to 180C. It is using a JST connector. So yeah, no XT30 still with King Kong. Still no on-screen display, but we do have a couple of changes. There is now a buzzer, and it's using a Pico BLX flight controller, so the VBAT feeds through to it as well. So we have battery telemetry, which is good because we don't have anything else, no on-screen display or anything like that. So yeah, we've got these prop protectors this time, and they're really hefty, so I imagine they're going to be really good in a crash. But yeah, it is going to be a little bit heavier than you would expect from a model of this size. Then we've got the usual King Kong rubber band there for the battery to go in. However, it does fit nice and flush here. And then we've got the switchable VTX. I say switchable, it's from 100 milliwatt to 25 milliwatt. However, you have to solder a jumper to change the power. So there's that somewhere here. Yeah, so a bit of a pain. So it's at 100 milliwatt out of the box, and it's the usual VTX that King Kong have, so just a couple of LEDs on there, and I think it's 16 channel. Yep, 16 channel it says in there, so I imagine somewhere we have got a channel guide. It might be, yeah, there we go, there's the there's the channel guide there. So just on LEDs, that's fine, but you do have to keep that with you if you want to check out the sequence there. We've got a 4-in-1 ESC that is flashed with BL-Hali S, and those are a 10 amp ESC board, and they support D-Shot 600. However, the Pico BLX does not support D-Shot 600 out of the box. You can make it do that, but you have to put some commands into the CLI, and you have to put a jumper on the, I think it's the PPM pin to the motor 1 pin. It's a bit of a pain, so it's stuck in multi-shot out of the box, which is fine for me, but if you're wanting to do D-Shot commands and turtle head mode, then yeah, you're gonna have to mess around, which I imagine some of you will want, because for indoors, flipping it over and stuff, maybe that's attractive. I don't like it personally myself, so I'm gonna stick with multi-shot. It's come flashed with Pico BLX as the target for Betaflight 3.16. So if you want to upgrade to version 3.2, you have to move to the FF Pico BLX if you want to do that. We've got a sleeve dipole antenna coming out of the back there. Now, one thing that I found a bit of a pain with this, you can see you've got a hole for the USB cable to go in, and another one there, but it's at slightly the wrong angle to get a USB cable in, so I found that you have to take the canopy off to get a cable in there, which is a little bit of a pain. We've got just 3 screws here, and then that lifts off quite nicely. The camera is up the top here, and it's got its angle fixed, but it's not too aggressive, so it should be fine for indoors. We'll check that out a little bit later. I suppose you could modify it, but it's on a little slot there, so you'd have to mess around with that. I had to take the canopy off anyways to access the receiver. Now, the receiver's deep down in here on top of the flight controller, and there are 2 holes in the top to access the bind button, but I couldn't reach it, so yeah, I had to take the canopy off anyways, which is a little bit of a pain, but there you go, just 3 screws underneath. So I have bound it to my Taranis, but I'm using an Orange RX DSM-X module, and it bound to that no problems. So I'm also going to be using a Bandicoot linear patch here for this, because it's a linear antenna on there, and obviously the real ACC Pro Plus Diversity module on way Cloverleaf antenna, and I'm going to be recording with the DVR in here. Let's see what other stuff you get. We've got this little package here with some goodies, so it looks like we've got 2 sets of props and some spare screws. Then we've got a prop remover, 2 spare rubber bands here. But yeah, I imagine that's going to be quite tricky to install, just as usual. So I don't think that'll snap, though. Seems alright. And we've got the little card in there telling us the different channels, etc. And actually a USB cable, so I should have checked that. Maybe let's check, let's see if we can get this USB cable in without having to remove the canopy, because yeah, it looks quite slimline actually. So that sort of goes in there, but it's at an angle. I'm not, look at that, I've had to really wedge it in. I can't say I'm too comfortable with that. So yeah, if you don't want to pull off the USB connector of your flight controller, yeah, I'd still recommend removing the canopy personally. So there's just a couple of things that I changed in Betaflight. First of all was the idle speed. It was set to about 1030 for multi-shot, obviously, and when I armed, some of the motors weren't spinning, so I upped that to about 1070, and that seems to be fine. If I have any problems with flips of death and things, I'll increase it even more. The modes were already keyed in, but a buzzer wasn't keyed in, so I added that onto the aux 3. I also added air mode in, so it was set up on the aux 1 to have angle, horizon and acro. I added air mode into that, and then on the aux 2 it's set to arm, so I set my Taranis up to match that. And I changed the rates. It just had stock rates of 0.7, so I've upped that to 0.8 for all of the axes, and it seems to have stock Betaflight PIDs. I'm going to try them, but yeah, I might have to change them. We'll see what it's like. But yeah, this one really, I mean, there's not going to be a lot I imagine that you can do to the tune when it's got these big prop protectors on, but we shall see how it flies. Okay, let's go for a line of sight. With this one, it is spitting a rain, but this is really just to see what the punch is like. It's windy today, and that's one thing that you get with models that have prop protectors. There's more drag and things to get caught by the wind. Let's check out the punch. It's not bad at all, you know, for the weight and things. Really not bad. Let's try again. Yeah, that's fine. Now I have had to switch out the receiver because it looks like my DSMX module is bust. The last review that I did of a DSMX model, I kept getting fail-safes, and I had the same with this. Switched out to the XM Plus receiver. No such problems. So yeah, it's like I'm gonna have to figure out another way to do DSMX. Maybe I'll switch to my old Devo 7E or something like that. But let's see what it's like in acro. Not too bad. I think I'm seeing a little bit of hesitation on the yaw when I do a punch. That is probably the PIDs on the yaw. But I'm just using the stock PIDs here because actually it seems to be flying quite nicely in acro. So I'm reluctant to change anything because models with a prop protector are notoriously difficult to tune for acro. I can't see why loosening up the yaw would have an effect on that, but I'm still gonna fly everything stock here just in case. This ain't bad, you know, this ain't bad at all. You know, maybe this is the model people are asking for. Something that's good outdoors and indoors. Even if it flies nicely though, I still think it's a bit of a compromise. It'll never fly quite as good as a model that doesn't have them. And those prop protectors, quite hefty, so just think how much lighter the model would be without that, and without that canopy, etc. Although I'm keeping the canopy on today because the moment it falls in the grass, it's gonna get caked like a grass paste. But yeah, I haven't needed to flick back into angle mode, but I'm gonna, just to see if we've got any drift issues. Doesn't look like it. Looks fine. Just battling against the winds that we've got here today. It seems alright. So let's come in for a landing, I think, and I'll do some FPV with it. So here is some DVR footage taken from the Dominator HD3s, and this is the outdoor flight, and I have to say it performed really well. The entire flight is done in acro mode, and I wasn't having any issues with flight characteristics such as the quick pitching back movement that models tend to have when you have prop protectors on and go into acro. I think that is down to the fact that the camera angle isn't too aggressive, which helps because you tend to find that the more forward movement that you have with these copters with the protectors, that's where you start to get the issues. Not the case with this one. In fact, I did some fast forward flying. I wasn't able to trick it out whatsoever. The only thing I will say is the yaw feels a little bit loose, and I think that is just the PID tune. These are just stock Betaflight PIDs, so I think that it could be improved on pretty easily, but like I say, I wanted to see how it flew with the stock PIDs, and it wasn't too bad at all. It was fairly snappy. In fact, I was able to do most of the maneuvers that I like to do. In fact, I think there's an inverted yaw spin in here somewhere. The roll feels pretty snappy, and the pitch feels snappy as well. The only thing that it is lacking compared to something like the Leader 120, there you go, look, inverted yaw spin. The only thing that is lacking really is the punch. It's got plenty of punch, don't get me wrong, but I'm being asked all the time, what is the best micro for indoors and outdoors? And yeah, I'm still giving the same answer. This definitely does both, and it's a good one that does both. But it's kind of like asking for a Ferrari that's also a Nissan Micra. It just doesn't happen, you know. So for me, this model is a very good flyer. In fact, it's superb for indoors. It's a little bit bigger, so it's not so easy to get through some of the really small, tiny gaps that you have inside the house, and you will see that in a minute because I'm going to go indoors and you'll see how it performs there. But yeah, this one, it performs okay. Outside, yeah, fine. Not on par with something like the Leader 120 or these 3-inch models that are coming out, such as the Sparrow and the 3B model that I reviewed, the CP130, stuff like that, the X140. All of those models are going to perform better outside as smaller models than this. And yeah, I thought I would switch the props out, but actually the props are pretty nice for this. I think if you went with the 5-blade, you could get a bit more performance out of it, but actually you probably get more amp draw and a little bit more sound coming from them, because one thing I liked about this was it actually wasn't too noisy for indoors, and that's a problem that I'm finding with these brushless micros for indoors. So yeah, but this one's really nimble, look, and acro around the trees, etc. And a great flight time as well, around about the 4-minute flight time if you want to push it. So yeah, that's pretty good. And the beeper was just starting to go off, so I'll come in for a landing and we'll do a little bit of FPV indoors, because this is really where I think this model shines. I was surprised. I thought it'd be a little bit too big indoors, but you know what? It's really stable. The camera angle is perfect for flying inside the house. I was able to zip around really quickly, so it was really accurate. There's no drift whatsoever indoors. The only thing that you do get with a brushless model indoors is if you've got like ornaments and things that can get blown around, such as bags on the floor like that, then they really get blown around. But just look at this, loads of confidence here flying indoors, and it is a really narrow corridor here, but no problems, didn't bash into anything there. Like I say, the only issues that I did have was really when it came to trying to get into extremely tight spaces, like between chairs and things. But look at the video reception here. There's no breakup whatsoever. I can fly all around the house. That is definitely down to the fact that it's running at 100 milliwatts, but also down to the fact that I'm using the Real ACC Pro Plus Diversity module along with that Bandicoot antenna. That is a massive game changer for these things. I would definitely recommend that you go for one of those. But yeah, here we go. I'm trying to go through the chairs here, and you'll see it's very difficult not to bash into things, just because, you know, we're talking probably just a few inches either side of the chair, but I do go for another go at it, and it is possible. But with a model such as the Bold Clash, so that's like the 1S brushless tiny whoop, it was really easy to get through those tiny gaps. So that's the only thing that I noticed. But you can see here though, I'm able to fly along the cupboards and things, and It's really accurate. It's really accurate, really smooth, and really fast, and in general, I think this model is fantastic for indoors, which, like I say, it surprised me. So, only downsides really is the fact that it doesn't have an on-screen display. I think King Kong, or LDARC, whatever you want to call yourself, I really think you're missing a trick, not going down the on-screen display route. It'd be very easy, especially with this camera and VTX combination, to stick an omnibus flight controller in there. I don't know, maybe it'll make it more expensive, but I think it'd be a really easy thing to do, and yeah, I think they are missing a trick there. Bit of a pain with the canopy, having the slot for the USB connector, and it not quite fitting in there easy, but that's a small thing. I think the major thing with this one is that it flies really nice, and look how accurate I can just land it here. So I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.